What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so another day, another Piers Morgan debate. Now, with everything that's been going on with the Trump administration, of course, they've been just hitting topics left and right. He come in like a damn NASCAR, just blazing through all of his campaign promises, and I'm loving it, right? And what's so great about this, the corporate press, the mainstream news, they do not know what to do. They don't know what to argue. They are just left holding the bag, if you will. And they can't seem to make up their mind on what to cover. There's so many news stories. So I'm scanning over the news and I'm like, wow, I could cover this and this and this and this. You know, honestly, you guys, I wish I had more time to cover news, but I don't. It is what it is. I love covering these debates on Saturdays. Y'all know that, but you know, with Trump's recent comments about Gaza, that has sparked up a debate, and that's something we're going to cover today. And of course, USAID is going to come into the picture, and we've discussed that topic at length. The left, they're trying to ignore this. As a matter of fact, my next video is going to be the argument from the progressive left. Y'all are going to love that, so make sure and stay tuned. Smash that notification bell. Bet you thought I was going to say something different. Smash the notification bell. Subscribe to this channel, but you got to do those in reverse order. You know, you got to subscribe first to stay up to date with how you're being manipulated by the corporate press. Then click on that notification bell. And so you can actually stay up to date with exactly how you're being manipulated by the corporate press. But don't forget, smash that like button and share this video anywhere and everywhere you can, because that is the best way to help me out. And as you can tell with the subscriber count, with the views I get, I need a little bit of help, y'all. Can't do it all by myself. I don't have money to dump into advertising to blow up the channel through monetary means. So I have to do it through granular means, if you will, just the natural way. You guys. So if I could ask y'all to do that, at least smash that like button. That would be the greatest. But without any further ado, enough of my rambling, right? Let's get into it.
Unusually patiently, Vinny. I've got to say, you've been on exemplary behaviour today. I salute you. Let me just ask you a slightly different way into this, because I find your conflict over this fascinating. I think a lot of people on the right are going to be conflicted by this. Because apart from anything else, how does all this sit if you take Trump's dream proposal to its logical conclusion and American troops are on the ground all over Gaza protecting this new Riviera and all the Palestinians are gone, and this is all happening thousands of miles from America. How does that sit with America first? I mean, is there not a direct conflict there with that whole ideology?
Yeah, Piers, and that's why I said from the beginning, it's conflicted on two sides. I mean, you know, Piers, you know me as a United States Air Force veteran. I am anti-war. The reason I left the military was because of the actions of the United States after 9/11, this weapons of mass destruction, this BS war that we were pushed into. Which, if you don't forget, Bibi Netanyahu did go in front of Congress and say also that Saddam Hussein not only had weapons of mass destruction, but that killing him, taking him out, would cause positive reverberations throughout the entire region. It did anything but that. But Piers, you know me, I'm anti-war, but at this situation, what else do we do? Okay? There's one side, and just like Ben Shapiro, Michael knows all this, Ben Shapiro has said, you know, Israel could take care of itself. All right? Obviously, it can't. It's a horrible situation that's not going to get better. And I wanted to ask Omar, who's running, if the Palestinian, is Hamas in charge? Who's actually in charge? And what solutions do you have to taking out Hamas running the show? Because if they're in charge, nobody's going to stop, Omar. Nobody's going to stop. They're not going to stop.
Yeah.
And I'm not, Piers, I'm anti. Go ahead.
Yeah,
the obvious answer is you should ask how Hamas came to power. There was a two-state solution on the table back in the late 1990s towards 2000, with the idea that Israel was going to end the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza to allow the facilitation of a Palestinian state. And there was no support for Hamas at the time. They were trying to sabotage that deal. But only when Israel made clear that they have no interest in allowing a legitimate Palestinian state to exist, kept entrenching the occupation and insisting that Palestinians must live forever under the boot of Israeli occupation, that's when support for Hamas rose, and Hamas became a political force to contend with. So if you have a problem with Hamas being empowered, the obvious alternative is to create a peaceful path where Palestinians can be a free people. And as long as American policy is to enable Israel denying Palestinians freedom, that is precisely what empowers groups like Hamas and makes it impossible that we're going to get rid of groups that are advocating for violence as a means of achieving liberation.
Okay, let me ask.
When Israel has blocked every other avenue for freedom.
I'm sure y'all know my position, but I'm going to go ahead and lay it out right here. I'm going to say right from the jump, I don't think we should be involved in this whatsoever outside of attempting a peace deal, attempting the ceasefire, right? Like, you know, Trump coming in and actually getting the ceasefire deal over the line. Hey, that's a great achievement right there. It's a minor achievement, if you will, but it's something the Biden administration absolutely could not do. But, you know, this dream world, this two-state solution world that these people live in, like, in what reality? Now, I know this may sound harsh, but I've got a rationale for this. What reality does a conquered people get to make demands of the conquerors at this point, right? Like, they lost the war, they lost their land. Israel is being generous, in my opinion. Now, that is not to say that they haven't done some evil stuff here, right? Because they definitely have, and I don't agree with everything Israel has done, right? I don't think we should be sending funding over there. If we want to sell them weapons, hey, we sell other people weapons, hey, sell them weapons. That's neither here nor there at this point. Giving them $17 billion, hang on, let's roll that back a little bit, because I don't agree with that. I don't think we should just be giving out this money like it's candy or something. But serious, in all seriousness, right? Like, what world do these people live in? I understand they're trying to create peace, right? But at the same time, Israel and some of their actions are stopping the peace from getting over the line, if you will, by some of their actions. But at the same time, you know, when does a conquered people get to make demands? At this point, you've lost. Just get out of the region. Give up your land. You want to go join another nation? Take over Israel? By God, do what you got to do. I don't condone any violence anywhere at any time for any reason, right? But this is the way of the world. Everywhere is not Lake Charles, Louisiana, where we're peaceful all of the time. You know, the United States, for the most part, we live in peace. We live comfortable, cushy lives. We've made pretty good lives for ourselves. Now, why can't this idea of peaceful coexistence spread? You know, I have no idea. You know, you got retribution out there. One state does one thing to another, then, oh, we got to fight back. We can't look weak on the world stage, so retribution. There we go. We get a little bit of revenge here. And that just goes back and forth, and that seems to be what is going on over here with the Israel-Palestine situation. If Israel would just carve out that section, Palestine or whatever, leave them to their own devices, I don't know if that would be a peaceful solution, right? Because sure, they're under Israeli occupation, if you want to call it that. It's not technically occupation in the traditional sense, but it's a pseudo-occupation, if you will. From everything that I can derive from this situation, it's a pseudo-occupation. So, yeah, I can see that argument that it's an occupation, but they do get a lot of freedoms. And what do they do with those freedoms? This is the problem here. They vote Hamas into power, which is a terrorist organization. What do they do with humanitarian assistance? They turn that into weapons somehow. So they send in water pipes so these people can have water. They build rockets to lob into Israel as revenge. At some point, the revenge has to stop. At some point, these people need to stop with the violence, right? Somewhere, right? Now, the bigger country in this, the much more wealthy nation, should, in my opinion, take the first step. Somebody has to do it, right? When you have a standoff, somebody has to put their gun down first. And obviously, the person with the position of power should be the one to do this. It should not be the weaker guy over here fighting for freedom, if you will, because, yeah, I'm not so sure that's what it is. They're not going to be the ones to stand down first. Obviously, they were pushed to that point for a reason. So I think Israel does need to back off a little bit. Carve out a section for these people. Give it to them. Let them run their lives autonomously and see how that works out. That's all I'm saying. There's got to be a solution here, right? And I'm not sure a two-state solution is the right solution, right? Because it really depends on who they put in power. Are they going to put another terrorist organization into power? Because if they do, once again, in circuitous method, we're going to be right back to where we are now. We're going to have another October 7th, and there's a whole conspiracy on that as to how that was allowed to happen. Because to think that Israel didn't know that was coming, yeah, so there's all kinds of questions around this thing. I don't have all the answers. I don't know all the answers. But, Donald Trump coming out and talking about turning it into a Riviera or whatever the hell he's talking about, I don't think that's ever going to happen. Is it constructive? I don't think so. But, it does move the needle. Whichever direction it is, it does move the needle. And, that situation was starting to stagnate, if you will. But, Donald Trump coming in, getting that ceasefire agreement put in place, hey, that's a good step forward. That's a real good step forward. Took a little step back, in my opinion, with, calling it the Riviera, saying we're going to come in and take over. And, the idea that they're calling it an ethnic cleansing, what Donald Trump is wanting to do, that makes it sound bad, but definitionally an ethnic cleansing is removing a people out of a land, right? It's getting rid of all those people. But a lot of people are calling it that, but is it really that? Because the idea here is to move these people, temporarily settle them somewhere else, rebuild that area, and then they can move back. I don't see a problem with that. But a lot of people are having a problem with that because it's definitionally an ethnic cleansing. But, I think all that's neither here nor there. Somebody has to put the gun down first. Just straight up, that's got to be Israel at this point. They need to stop with a lot of their expansionism and all that stuff. If they were to do that, I think a more permanent ceasefire deal could be put in place. These people could live in peace. Because, as we know, there are a lot. I don't know if it's in the millions, but it is over 1 million of Arab Palestinians, that type of people living in Israel, living in harmony with the Jews. It can happen, y'all. We just got to get to that point. But let's keep going.
Omar, I saw you shaking your head there. I mean, just to be clear, do you support the United States providing $70,000 for production of a DEI musical in Ireland, or $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia? Because it seems completely insane that America is spending this kind of money.
If we dig into humanitarian programs and development programs, we might find a few $1,000s here and there that are misspent and could potentially be wasteful. But it's just incredible that we're talking about this when the real waste is the military-industrial complex. It's sending billions of dollars to a genocidal government that is wiping Gaza off the face of the earth. That's where the waste is. It's not chasing these few $1,000s here and there. To be talking about that at a time in which the Pentagon budget is just overbloated, it ends in the pockets of private military contractors, at a time when the U.S. would not negotiate drug prices down.
Let me stop you, because you're making
to run rampant.
Yeah, in a way, you're making a kind of
my point is,
you're making. Hang on, what you're doing, you're playing kind of what a battery is. In other words, there's another area of overspend. Maybe they'll get to that. Let's wait and see about the overspending by the Pentagon. They might. I'm not holding my breath, but they might.
But they won't. But they won't. We know they won't, Piers.
Omar, my point is, Elon Musk is going through a lot of federal spending. America spends a gigantic sum of money, $17 trillion in debt, maybe more now, I think. They've got to do something. Elon's taking his shredder to this. And so I just ask you again, on those two examples I gave you, do you think it's right that America spends that kind of money? Because it seems to me an obvious place to start if you're going to trim federal spending.
Yeah, again, I don't agree that this is the right place to start. Again, to be chasing down a few $1,000s here and there in random programs where
it's millions, actually.
When the obvious,
it's many millions. They manage They actually manage $43 billion in appropriations.
Compared to the nearly $1 trillion in military budget.
It's not a few thousand here and there, is it, Omar? It's a lot of money.
No, but I'm saying if you're looking at individual programs, again, when you're saying $73,000 for this and $400,000 for that, what about the $20 billion for Israeli war crimes?
All right, you made that point. All right.
When you have people with Israel derangement syndrome, they can't see anything outside of Israel is the root of all evil, right? So naturally they're going to bring it back to this. But what I love about this argument is, yes, it's whataboutery, but that's not it, is it? Because we just haven't gotten there yet, my guy. Wait until we get to the DOD. Oh my goodness, there's going to be plenty of wasteful spending coming from that, right? We're hitting these agencies one by one by one, and it is hilarious to me that the first rock we look under, boom, all of this wasteful spending, the very first one. All of this wasteful spending. And what is the left doing? They're outright ignoring all of this ridiculous spending.
$1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru.
Yes, those things. They're ignoring this outright. Why? Because they want this. And this is all in the name of international development, right? They're like, what, we don't see a problem with any of this. Because, yes, what USAID is essentially trying to do here is spread far left ideology around the world. Oh, we're just developing this, and oh, it's humanitarian aid, isn't it? This is what they keep calling it. They keep calling it humanitarian aid, and I've come to realize that they're not talking about like food assistance, clothing assistance, water. No, that's not what they're talking about. They're actually talking about these programs.
$1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru.
Those programs, that's what they're talking about. That's the humanitarian assistance that we're delivering to the world. We're spreading democracy. Don't you want democracy everywhere? This is the argument. This is why we're getting absolutely nothing. And they keep saying, oh, well, it's just far-right conspiracies, and they're just nut jobs over there on the right. Oh, they're just crazy. They're shutting off humanitarian assistance, y'all. I gotta love it. I just can't stand these people. This is wasteful spending that we don't need, we don't want. Look, it's not incumbent upon the United States to spread far-left ideologies all over the world. Right? A lot of these places don't agree with this stuff. Just like America, most of Americans don't agree with this nonsense. Why do we think we want that in Zimbabwe or Brazil or Kenya or Ethiopia? Do you think they can afford to think about, oh, well, are we diverse enough over here? No. They don't care about this nonsense. We're wasting money. This is a giant waste. If we were spreading actual democracy, right? The idea of voting for your elected representatives, if we were spreading our Constitution, those basic ideas, the Bill of Rights, the Civil Rights Act, these things, if we were teaching them about this and trying to promote these ideas in government for them to shatter their government that they currently have and take up a constitutional republic, if you will, democracy as the left wants to call it. If we were doing that, if we were trying to push them towards a constitutional republic, I don't think you would get any conservative to bat a freaking eye at any of this. Now, we would say, hey, why are we spending $2.2 million to do this? But maybe they would shut up. If you say, hey, we're trying to homogenize the world to the best form of government ever that's been put to paper, right? That's ever been implemented. It's not just paper. It's ever been implemented in the world. The best form of government. That would be an argument a lot of conservatives would shut up about. They would sit down, shut up, and just move right along. But the fact that it's far left ideology, it's not actually spreading democracy. They just want to call it democracy as, calling it humanitarian assistance. No, I'm sorry. This is not sending corn to Kenya for crying out loud. This is not sending MREs to a war-torn country like Syria or something like that. Is not what we're doing. There is a little tiny bit of that. Once again, like we've talked about, 3% of USAID budget goes toward actual humanitarian assistance, food, clothing, water, all that jazz, right? Why aren't we spreading nuclear power plants? Why aren't we spreading actual democracy? Why aren't we spreading development of these countries without the coal-fired power plants, without, the fossil fuels? Like there are ways, sustainable ways to power these nations, to bring them up to snuff, if you will, to drag them out of poverty and into wealth. But we're not doing that. We're wasting money on
$1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru.
And that's just nonsense to me. But let's keep going.
Like I say, I'm very cynical. I think Putin would love to get his hands on all of Ukraine personally and then move on to other countries. But we'll see how history will record all this. Omar, just quickly, your response to Zelensky saying, look, I need enough defense to act as a genuine deterrent, not something that Putin can just ignore.
Yeah, we need fewer nuclear weapons in the world and not more. We already are living in an incredibly dangerous situation by having as many nuclear weapons out there as we have. And of course, Donald Trump, the alleged foreign policy genius, tore up the nuclear deal with Iran that made sure that Iran could not have nukes and is pursuing a belligerent strategy towards Iran. And Iran's nuclear program is advancing and progressing, and because of that, the world is becoming incredibly more dangerous. And I think this is a very, very serious issue that when we're looking at the prospects of the world ending, it's climate change and the prospect of nuclear war. Those are the two biggest risks. And we are really playing with fire if we continue down the path of saying that the way to maintain world peace is just to spread destructive weapons that could blow up the entire planet everywhere so that nobody would invade. We have to be more civilized than that, and we have to achieve a level of seriousness about preserving this planet for future generations that leads us down a very, very different path of what it means.
Okay, so Zelensky wants nukes. They had nukes at one point. They were Soviet nukes. They were, I don't know, they voluntarily gave them up. I would say it was to the point of forced to give them up, right? Because they were technically Soviet nukes. They weren't Ukrainian nukes. But hang on just a second. When the Soviet Union broke up, those countries, I'm sorry, you get to keep what's in your country. Well, they say possession is 9/10 of the law. Yeah, that 1/10 I don't think matters at that point. They should have just kept that deterrent, to be honest with you. But I do agree. For Zelensky to want the nukes, hey, he would be remiss to not ask for that. However, buddy, you're not going to get nukes. I'm sorry. I agree with him a little bit on that. We need less nukes in this world instead of more nukes. They are a good deterrent, but they're only a good deterrent against other nukes. If we didn't have those nukes, then we would have other deterrents, right? Right? I'm sure we would. But this whole idea, this Ukrainian crap, the basis for most of the argument why we should defend Ukraine is based upon the fact that Ukraine gave up their nukes and we said we would protect them. No, I'm sorry. It is not in our national interest to protect these countries. Look, Putin's not a good guy for doing this. Evil scumbag. I've said that 1,000 times. But once again, the same situation with Israel. It is not incumbent upon us to protect the rest of the world, right? I don't think we should have went into Kuwait either, right? Well, maybe that's a different story. I don't know. I was a kid at the time. I don't know the whole situation. Maybe we shouldn't have. Maybe we did. We should have. I don't know. But I can promise you this. That second Iraq war should have never been done. That regime change war should have never taken place. I'm sorry, the weapons of mass destruction and all that nonsense, that they blatantly lied. There was never any accountability for that. And, once again, with this situation, Zelensky wanting nukes, there's got to be some sort of deal. I completely see us getting involved in the fact that we're negotiating peace deals. That is what our job should be. We should not be supplying Zelensky with weapons. I say this over and over and over again. I understand that people, oh, we got to defend democracy. They're not a democracy. Not anything that resembles anything like the United States. I am sorry. That is not a democracy. That is the most corrupt nation in Europe at this point. All right, so I'm not defending that. None of my taxpayer dollars should go to that. I'm sorry. That is just not how this works. I do not like it whatsoever. But giving him nukes, that's an absurd idea. You do not get nukes just because, right? I do agree, though, if they would have had the nukes, but Russia probably would not have invaded. But I don't think Russia's going to go any further than where he's at. Like, there's no argument that can make me agree. You know, I disagree wholeheartedly with Piers here. Like, he thinks that Putin, you know, he's just got ambitions to roll into Poland and roll into NATO and take over Europe. As if he's Hitler. I'm sorry. No. Like, he hasn't even shown any interest in going anywhere past where he's at. I'm sorry. Like, he could put a lot more effort into it, and he's not doing that, is he? Like, where's the argument for this? He's not putting 20% of his forces into that, to be honest with you. He's not putting as much effort as he could if he had ambitions of expansion. If he wanted to expand, he could put a lot more force into that, but he's not, is he? No, he's not. And there's no argument to convince me otherwise. There's zero argument to convince me otherwise. But I think that's all I got on this one, y'all. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section, because I'd be interested to hear from y'all. Y'all don't forget, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new around here, turn on your notifications, and share this video anywhere and everywhere that you guys can. But that's all I got. I want to thank everybody for watching. Y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.